Hello, everyone. This is the Fight or Flight podcast. My name is Lanray. I do breakdowns of upcoming MMA fights. This week, I'm going to be doing a breakdown of UFC 254 Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. This is happening in Abu Dhabi, Fight Island. And it's one of those fights that everybody's been looking forward to for a very, very long time. Before I get into that, I'm also going to be once I finish that, I'm also going to be doing the Robert Whittaker and Cannonier fight as well. I'm going to be doing a breakdown of both those fights. You can expect this podcast to be released once a week. I will generally be doing breakdowns of upcoming fights. I'll also be reviewing some of the latest news or notes from the MMA world in general. So to begin with, I want to start with the Khabib and Justin fight. So there's been a lot of commentary this week about how Justin Gaethje is the greatest wrestler that Khabib has faced, the best wrestler. He has Division 1 pedigree and a lot of that. And I think that is true. I'm not here to say that Justin Gaethje does not have superb wrestling and won't be a difficult opponent for Khabib. I just think that kind of misses the point about what this fight is going to be about. If you watch a lot of Khabib fights, and I actually just finished watching about his last 5 fights. I've watched all of Khabib's fights in the UFC. I've seen like 1 or 2 outside of the UFC, but all of the ones in the UFC, people talk about, say, the Gleison Tibau fight or some of those other fights where he could take people down or couldn't hold them down, or his control wasn't as good. I think that misses the point. So let me do a quick breakdown of why Khabib is good. Khabib is really good with takedowns. I'll say he's probably, if not the best, one of the best. I think the best I've seen is George St. Pierre as far as the takedown is concerned. Just talking about the takedown itself, the art of taking someone down. I've never seen, even till now, I haven't seen anybody with the kind of timing that George St. Pierre had. And what he was good at was, a lot of times he was really good at timing when to shoot for the takedown. So generally speaking, if you're just in a wrestling match with someone who knows that the goal is for you to take them down, it's just a pure wrestling match, it's much more difficult to actually take someone down. But in an MMA fight, people have to be worried about a lot of other things. People have to be worried about punching, you kicking, things like that. And then what George was excellent at is he would time a lot of his takedowns based on when people would try to strike with him. So if you threw a punch and your balance was off, he would drop his level and he would shoot for the takedown, and he would be able to complete that. He was also excellent at, just other types of takedown, faking a punch and then dropping his level and going for the takedown. And over time, what happens to people is the combination of both, because I can make it look like I'm going to drop my level to shoot for a takedown and then throw an overhand as opposed to actually going for the takedown. And so there's that 1 second where you can't fully anticipate what I'm going to do. You have to be sure that I'm actually dropping my level, and that's all it takes for the people who are really good. That little second of hesitation, that's what a lot of the ones that are really good are good at. So Khabib's takedown is supremely impressive, and I really believe we haven't seen his full skill set. So I really believe we haven't seen all of his takedown techniques, right? But I think while he's good at takedowns, what he's actually great at, what he's excellent at, why he wins these fights is not because he's just good at the takedown. It's that he's relentless. So if you stop 1, he will come for 2. If you stop 2, he will come for 3. If you stop 3, he will come for 4, and on and on and on. And this is somebody who's had, I think, something like 20 takedowns in a particular fight. I think with I'm blanking on the dude's name now. Now you can say that person didn't have the same type of wrestling that Justin Gaethje has, which is true. But the energy and the relentlessness and the mindset that you need to be able to go for that many takedowns is what sets Khabib apart. He is not deterred or disappointed if he can't get you down the first time. He will keep coming. So that's the first thing that really makes him great. It's the mindset of relentlessness that he embodies. That's the first thing. The second thing that also makes Khabib really, really, really good is that once he gets you, if he gets one takedown, if he gets only one, his control is like nothing we've ever seen. So if you think about a takedown is just the act of actually taking you down. Control is keeping you down, right? And that's what we've never seen. The level of control that he has, the way that he manipulates these people. He'll give you options that he's aware based on your training you want to take, and then based on those options he will take away other things. So it's the definition of giving you the best of two terrible choices. It's like you can take this choice but it won't work out for you, but there's another choice and that one is marginally less worse than the first, but that's also a bad choice. So it's making you try to decide which one of these two bad choices am I going to have as an option for me, right? So those are the two things that sets Khabib apart from other people, right? So against Abel Trujillo, as I was saying, Abel Trujillo is the guy's name I forgot. He had 21 takedowns. Now Trujillo was able to get up for a lot of those. That's why he had so many. But he didn't stop taking him down. And Trujillo was a wrestler in college. Again, not Justin Gaethje level wrestling, right? Now, what I think makes this matchup, why I think people will like the matchup, I'll just do a quick analysis of Gaethje's side. One of the things that people love, obviously, is the fact that Gaethje had really, really top level wrestling. NCAA type, All-American type wrestling. No taking that away from him. Right, so that's one. I think two, the performance that we saw from Justin Gaethje against Tony Ferguson is one of the best performances I've ever seen. Especially when you consider the fact that at that point, Tony Ferguson was, if not the most feared, other than Khabib, he was definitely second. You can put Ferguson and Conor McGregor, you can interchange them in any way that you like. But I think the part that set Tony apart is just the mentality that he had. He had the stamina, so he wouldn't stop coming, and we saw that in the fight. Even though he was getting pieced apart, he was still relentless with his pressure, right? And Justin Gaethje, that was as one-sided of a fight. I know some people have said, the second round. The second round was just the very end where Tony was able to land that uppercut that that put Justin on the ground for a few seconds. But Justin bounced back up too. So, I'm not looking at that and saying, oh, that's it was a one-sided fight for Justin Gaethje. Incredible performance. One of the best performances I've ever seen. I just watched it again. And every time I watch it, it's even better than the last time. Because when you watch it live, you're kind of in amazement, so you miss so much. But when you watch it a second and a third time, you can actually slow it down. You can rewind. You can see how he's setting things up. And it was just incredible to watch, right? So that was Justin Gaethje. And so there's the striking acumen that he has. There's Trevor Whitman in his corner, who's one of the most respected MMA coaches, especially now. Like if you see what he's done with Rose Namajunas, Kamaru Usman is now training with him as well. He's extremely respected, and rightfully so as well. Like he's really good. So those are some of the things that Gaethje has going on for him, right? What I think, the way I see this fight going is for Khabib to win, and I'm picking Khabib to win. You might already be able to tell. I'm picking Khabib to win, and why I think Khabib is going to win is, again, I don't think he'll get Justin down the first time. If he gets Justin down the first time, I think it's going to be a short fight, right? But I don't think he'll get Justin down the first time. I think Justin has the ability to land some good leg kicks, but I think Khabib will get him down. I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. And when he gets him down, he might not be able to hold him down the first time. He might not be able to hold him down the second time. But eventually, this is going to keep going into a cycle. And Justin Gaethje is not going to be able to fight the type of fight that he wants to fight. What he wants to fight is he wants to create chaos. And I think when they get into those moments where Khabib shoots for the takedown, on the breakaway, if Justin is able to disengage, he might try to land some damage. But even, throwing punches, like I mentioned, even just the act of throwing punches, your balance is not what it should be in terms of what you need for defending a takedown. And so I think you'll get into this cycle, this grind cycle that Khabib puts all his opponents through, where he just keeps coming. And so that ends up also diminishing your offensive attacks. That ends up diminishing your punches, your kicks, not necessarily just because you don't have as much power, because you don't have as much energy, but also because you have to now start thinking about it more. If you hit one of those calf kicks, which Justin is incredible with the calf kicks. If you hit one of those kicks and right as you hit it, he grabs your leg and he runs for a single, and that begins a chain wrestling sequence that lasts for 2 minutes, a minute and a half. The next time you're going to throw that kick, you're going to think about it because you know what you just expended, what you just went through. And that makes you a little bit more hesitant. Now you're going to want to reduce your risk. So you're going to want to look for the perfect situation to throw that kick. Meanwhile, this guy is still coming forward, right? And if you want to throw those punches, it's the same thing as well, right? So the way that I see Justin winning this fight is for him to land a knockout blow early. I think if he's able to land a knockout blow while he's fresh, so in the first round, in the second round, then it's possible that he does this to Khabib. And we've seen him knock people out. A lot of times, though, when we see him knock people out, we see him knock people out who are either stationary, so they're standing by the cage, backed up, or, it's people who are moving backwards, right? In the Cowboy fight, Cowboy was moving forward. Justin pivoted at an angle and he was able to land some punches and knock Cowboy down. So it's not to say that he can't do it. He definitely has that chance. I'm not saying he doesn't have a chance in this fight, but I think he has the same chance that Dustin Poirier had, which is, again, I would say something like 70-30. This is my opinion. Everybody is entitled to have their own opinion. I think Justin is a fantastic fighter. I'm not taking anything away from Justin. I just think the fights that I've seen, and I've gone back and I've watched some of his fights, even the fights in PFL, there was a fight he had against, I think the guy's name was Firmino. I have to go check to see what the guy's name was. But Justin had a fight with a guy in PFL. I think it was one of his last fights before he came to the UFC, and that fight ended up getting stopped because he had cut him. He suffered a cut to the eye, and the doctors just didn't think he would be able to continue the fight. The guy's name is Luis Firmino. You should go watch that fight. It'll give you an indication of what I'm talking about. Now, that's a long time ago. I'm talking about something that happened in 2017, and that's probably the most I've seen Justin use wrestling in any of his fights. And so Firmino was somebody who was relentless, doesn't have the skill level of Khabib as far as the takedown. I think he's more of a jiu-jitsu player. Doesn't have the skill level of Khabib, but he was also kind of relentless as far as coming forward. He was willing to engage more in the stand-up with Justin, and I had him winning that fight up until the point where the fight was stopped. Not again because he was knocked out or anything. He suffered a cut. The doctor just didn't think it was safe for him to continue. It was also in New York, which has a history for, stopping these fights prematurely. If you think of the Jorge Masvidal and why am I blanking out? Nate Diaz fight, that, something similar to that, right? So, that was somebody who was relentless. There's also this narrative out there that Justin Gaethje has this unlimited gas tank, and I do not agree with that at all. If you watch any of his losses, even his wins, if you look at the Michael Johnson fight, if you look at the Dustin Poirier fight, if you look at the Eddie Alvarez fight, if you look at this Luis Firmino fight that I'm talking about, he is mentally very strong. He is mentally relentless, so he's not going to quit. Please do not confuse what I'm saying with quit. He is not going to quit. And one of the things that we say, if you've ever done any type of sport, or you've even just go and hit the bag, hit a bag, and you do that for like 10 minutes straight, you will get to the point where your body is telling you, fam, you need to stop. you want to stop, you want to quit. And that's what happens to a lot of people in there is if you're tired and on top of that you're getting hit, a lot of people will quit. I don't think I've ever seen a fight where Justin Gaethje got quit. He's been stopped, he's been stopped in his fights, but he hasn't actually quit. He always kept coming forward. That is not the same thing to say. That is not to say that he didn't get tired. He fatigued visibly in a lot of these fights. He's still coming forward, he's still trying, but you can tell that he's definitely not the same person that started the fight, right? So I don't agree with this idea that he has an unlimited gas tank or he's as relentless as Khabib is. I feel pretty certain that Khabib's game plan is going to be getting there, and he said this actually, so it's not like I'm saying that anything, that he hasn't said. Getting there, and the first round I expect him to be extremely relentless with the takedowns. Khabib is really good at setting up the takedown, so he's not one of these guys who will just shoot from far all the time. Like, I'm not saying he hasn't done that, but generally speaking, he tries to mix it up. Start with punches or kicks and then go down, right? So, and his timing is also really good. I expect that he's going to be relentless with the wrestling and just keep Justin in a cycle of defending one takedown after another. And then I think in the second round, you're going to see that Justin, who has not quit, is still ready to fight, is not necessarily going to have as much energy as he did in the first round. The other thing about Khabib is that if you watch the Conor McGregor fight, so let me start with the Michael Johnson fight and the Edson Barbosa fight, and then the Al Iaquinta fight, which when you go back and you watch it was total domination. There's this idea that Al did something that nobody else has done. It was total domination. And even in the rounds where he stood up, you could tell that he was making a decision to stand up and fight as opposed to try to take him down. And that's not to say that he didn't try to take him down in those rounds, but he didn't go through the cycle of takedowns that he normally does. If you watch Khabib fights, the fights that go the distance or go like since he started fighting 5 rounds, one of his MOs is to fight 2 rounds, third round, kind of take a break, and then continue the cycle in the 4th and 5th. And I think that one of the reasons why is obviously you can't necessarily wrestle for 25 minutes straight. I mean, I'm sure there are people who can do it, especially if you're the one in control. But I also feel like after those first 2 rounds, he sees that the people he's fighting, they don't have the same pop. For you to be able to have that speed, that accuracy, your timing, for sharpness, you have to be sharp as well. Like you have to, for the most part, your gas tank has to still be there. You won't be drained. Or once you're drained, you're not as sharp. People can start telegraphing before you throw a punch and things like that, right? So, I don't agree with people. I think Justin has a chance to win in this fight. I'm going to be watching this fight. I think Khabib is going to win. I think it's going to go no more than the 3rd round. Is there a chance that it goes to the 5th? For sure. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But Justin Gaethje has never gone 5 rounds. And in this fight, I don't think he's one of these people who will accept the position of being down. So if you watch the Dustin Poirier fight, or if you watch even the Conor McGregor fight, once those guys were taken down, they were comfortable with staying down, right? They would get into positions where they would say, okay, you know what? Next round is going to start on the feet. I'm just going to ride this out until the next round starts. I don't think Justin Gaethje is going to do that, because I feel like mentally, if he accepts the position on the bottom, he's going to break. And I just can't see him quitting. I just can't see him breaking. What I think is more likely is that as he gets more tired, he's going to take more reckless steps to get out of these takedowns. He's going to give his back to Khabib, who's an excellent jiu-jitsu master as well. People don't talk about that enough. And then I think it's going to give Khabib the opportunity to be able to choke him out, or maybe even land a Kimura. I would go for a choke. I would predict a choke, let me say. I'm not the one fighting. So, again, the way I see this going, I see the first round being Khabib relentlessly, taking Justin down, trying to wear on that gas tank. In the second round, I think he engages maybe for a little bit of time just to, check to see if Justin is still has his pop, and then take him down. maybe not till towards the end of the second round. And then in the third round, I anticipate that he takes him down, holds him down. And at that point, I expect Justin is going to be tired, but is going to, be reckless with. So instead of trying to use technique to get out, his whole plan is to not be held down. And so if he finds himself being held down, I think he'll start transitioning into rolls or, giving up his back so he can pivot and try to stand up. And I feel like because of his wrestling pedigree, he's not going to believe that there's a man out there that can hold him down. And he's not going to want to allow that to happen. And generally speaking, if you decide that you're not going to be held down and you don't have the energy to stand up using technique, you're going to try to power through and you're going to make mistakes. And Khabib is going to end up, getting in for a submission and choking him out and winning. So I have Khabib by third round victory. Okay, so now I'm going to do a breakdown of the Robert Whittaker and Jared Cannonier fight. To begin with, I think it's important to know that this fight is only a 3-round fight as opposed to a 5-round fight. I don't think Rob has been in one of these 3-round fights in a while. So from that perspective, I think he's going to enjoy it. Just because, preparing for a 5-round fight and a 3-round fight, I know people say it's, they prepare the same way. I don't think you necessarily prepare the same way, right? So, but I think he's going to enjoy this a little bit more. The way I see this, so let me just do a quick breakdown of both their fighting styles. Robert is somebody who blitzes, so he rushes in. I don't want to say rushes in like he doesn't know what he's doing or he's reckless, but what I mean is he blitzes in and then lands his punches and he exits out on an angle. Generally speaking, I know that's a very simplistic way to describe it, but that's kind of what he does. He blitzes in and he's very, very aware of making sure that he exits out on an angle that his opponent can then land anything. So he blitzes in one direction and then blitzes out in the other direction as well. Generally speaking, that's kind of his striking style, right? So he has pretty good wrestling. I believe he wrestles, or he's he's on the Australian wrestling team. We haven't seen as much of it in the UFC, if I'm being honest, but he does have that ability in his back pocket. So he's pretty good at mixing things up, and he's pretty good at, he's good. Like, Robert is really good. He was a good champion. Unfortunately, he suffered from a number of injuries, but he's been back, and I'm expecting to see the best of Robert Whittaker going forward. Jared Cannonier is somebody who was a heavyweight and is now a middleweight, so he's come down 2 divisions. So he went from heavyweight to light heavyweight, and then from light heavyweight to middle. And so he's also really good. I feel like his fighting style is, coming forward. He has a lot of power and he's aware of it. I'm not saying that he's just brute force. He's really good about timing. He's really good about not being taken down. He's really good about trying to set up his punches. He's not flashy. He's not Israel. He's not Israel Adesanya, who is like Matrix level striker. He's good everywhere, and all he knows that he just needs to touch you, and it's going to be a long night for you, right? So I think on the betting, I think he's a betting favorite. Jared is. I don't see this fight going that way, especially like I mentioned earlier on. It's a 3-round fight. The way I see this fight panning out is, I think Rob stays on the outside. I think he blitzes in, uses a lot of kicks, tries to keep distance, tries to make sure he's safe. Like I said about blitzing in, I don't think the point of these punches or these attacks is going to be necessarily to knock Jared Cannonier out. I think it's only to hit and move. And in a 3-round fight, if you win 2 rounds, you've won the fight, right? So what Robert needs to focus on is to not get hit with these power punches for the 3 rounds. And I believe he's capable of doing that. Having said that, would I be surprised if Jared was able to hit him? No. right? I would not be surprised if Jared is able to hit. And like I told you, if you see Jared's fights against Jack Hermanson, against David Branch, a lot of those guys were the aggressors in those fights, right? Like David Branch was trying to take him down, Jack Hermanson as well. A lot of these guys were the aggressors, and they were trying to hold out for various portions of the fight in terms of engaging him at close quarters, so he didn't have the space to land some of those power punches. And with both of them, all he needed was one punch. I mean, generally speaking, that's all it takes. But, it wasn't like he set up a flurry. It was with David Branch, the one punch that set him down. With Cannonier was the uppercut coming to the middle, set him down as well. And then he finished the fight from there. So you have to be very careful about engaging him consistently within that range where he can land these power punches. I think Rob is going to be excellent at that. Again, it's a 3-round fight. I anticipate that the first round is not going to be very exciting. It's going to be them filling out each other. Rob is going to stay on the outside, try to land. He's probably going to win that round just based off of, moving around a lot and not engaging as much, but engaging on his terms, which is not a lot. So I don't expect a lot of strikes in the first round. I think in the second round, Jared begins to pick up the pace because he realizes that he needs to now be the aggressor. So I think in the second round, it's going to be even, but I would give Rob the advantage because if he's being pressured, he's also a pretty good counter striker as well. So I would give him the advantage. And in the last round is where I would give Jared Cannonier the advantage because he's going to be full on desperate and he's going to be walking through punches to get through Robert Whittaker because he knows he needs a knockout to win the fight. So I would go with Robert in a decision, or if Jared is going to win, I would say it would be a 3rd round knockout. So those are my picks, and that's my preview for UFC 254. Please watch the fight. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Like I said, I do the breakdowns. I will be doing a lot more of these breakdowns for the fights. I can do it in podcast form and put it on Spotify and put it on a lot of these other places where you can find iTunes, Apple, wherever you find your you listen to your podcasts. And then on YouTube, right now the channel is called MMA Central. Please like and subscribe as well on there. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I will do another one next week and I will be reviewing the results from these fights. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those in the comments for the YouTube channel. Once again, thanks for listening to this.